Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for jumping on with me. This is a very exciting interview for me because we don't know each other, and
Right.
just yeah, no, we so for people who watch the video later, I came across you on Instagram. It was an author follow loop, probably a few years ago, like before COVID, and then I've recently been looking for people to interview because I want to start doing other indie author interviews on the channel. And I reached out to like 5 or 6 people because I assumed everybody would say yes. So I just wanted to keep it small. And you were the only person who got back to me. So very exciting for me. Thank you.
Oh, well, good.
So yeah, if you just want to jump into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in self-publishing?
Yeah, for sure. So, I, when I was in college, my dad told me that if I wanted to be a writer, I should be writing. And so he had issued this challenge. It was a summer after I got home from my freshman year of college. And he was like, I want 10 pages a night that I can read out loud to your younger siblings, and I'll pay you $1 a page. And if you finish before you go back to school, I'll pay you $1,000. And
Wow.
so that was kind of a really nice incentive for a poor college student. So I would ride my bike every day to the pool. I was working in concessions and admissions there. And so there's a lot of downtime in that job because if it was cold or if people weren't coming to the pool, there was nothing to do. And we weren't allowed to play cards or do anything. So I would just like have my notebook and I'd be writing furiously in all my downtime. And then I'd ride home and I'd type out, that 10 pages, and my dad would read that out loud right then, that evening after dinner to my whole family. And
no
so I got a
pressure.
lot of, none whatsoever, but they were a good audience. They really seemed to enjoy the story. And so they, and my brothers were in their early teens. And then my younger sister was about 9. So it was kind of an interesting age range that I was writing to. And every night they'd be like, we want to know what happens next. And I would be like, me too. Because I had no idea. I just started writing. I had no idea where the story was going or even who the main characters were, but it was a lot of fun. And so that kind of sort of set me on a path to, I just really enjoyed that. I enjoyed writing. And then other people read, the horrible rough draft that it was, and they liked it. So many years later, I polished that story up, and that was my first novel that I published. And then that was King's Warrior, and then the rest of the series kind of came after that. So I just kind of never looked back.
You're twisting my arm now. So another thing that happened was King's Warrior was free on Kindle. And I have to admit, I'm kind of like the whole plug in the headphones. I'd rather have the hard copy book. So either I'll end up buying the hard copy book and read that, or I'll download Kindle again and get through it. But yeah, no, that, you mentioned that. It's like, I know that one because I don't know. I was thumbing through your website, and you've written a few books now. You have quite the collection going.
Yeah, I've got my 10th novel publishing next month. So it's a lot.
And do you self-publish all
I self-published everything. Yeah.
Okay. How'd you end up in that? Like, why'd you pick that? How'd you learn it?
Yeah. So when I wrote those first 2 books back in college, it was very easy. I was actually with Book Surge. But back before Create Space, before KDP, people were just starting to self-publish things, and there were no e-readers. It was like 2003 or 2004 or whatever. I had a friend do the covers, and we just made all the mistakes. And it was just very kind of went through all of that, got those 2 books out, got them in actual hardcover. Like they even had hardcover options. So hardcover and paperback options, and a bunch of people read them. And I'm super embarrassed that many people read them. But that's, so then when we kind of started going, okay, let's do this, because I had 4 books out, that I'd written, and I had more books I was working on. I was like, okay, this is actually something I want to do. And so then we started kind of looking into it. And I did actually like query agents and started sending stuff off to publishers. And I had a couple people like respond, ask for the first 5 chapters or, a whole manuscript, but never went anywhere. And after about a month, I got very sick of that. So I gave up real easy.
I want to jump in on that though, because like I loosely fantasized about sending work out to a publishing house, and the amount of like, you can't send this to anybody else, and then you're gonna have to wait a year, and then you're gonna
Right.
get the no, and then you can send it. So it's like nobody has. That's
Right.
way too much time. Way too much time. You
Right.
know.
And I was,
So
yeah. So it's just kind of that I kind of came to the realization that I could spend all of my time and effort writing query letters and synopses, which I
yep.
hated, or I could write the books that I wanted to write, and I could do it myself and actually put them out there. And so that was ultimately what I decided to do. So
Nice.
yeah,
How's it? I know I sent you a list of questions, but and like I'm completely deviating at this point. I'll circle back.
that's all right. That's how
But
podcasts go.
you have a lot of just interesting avenues that we can take this. So how's that worked out for you? Like, do you have your website looks incredibly professional. It looks better than mine. Like I'm thumbing through it going, wait, where did she, the cover art, like how do you do it? How's the cover artwork? What's with the website? Have you successfully built a following? Because that's usually the issue. Something you just said was the whole spending all your time writing inquiry letters. Something that I've found for myself and for a lot of indie authors is just you sit there going, well, I can spend all my time marketing, or I can write another book. Which would I rather do? And
Right.
usually you pick to write the book. So yeah, how is all of
Yeah.
that working out for you?
Well, I have been blessed to have very many very creative, very talented people in my life and surrounding me. My husband is very techie, and he's the one who designed the website, and so I have that in my corner, and he does all of my book formatting, so I don't have to pay for that, which is lovely.
Nice.
And with my first series, my sister-in-law did the like actual custom watercolor paintings for those
Okay.
covers. And again, just was donated that, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
very nice. So a lot of times it's been editing that I've really spent money on.
Mhm.
In terms of building a following, I don't do as much marketing as I could or should if I really
Not
wanted
much too.
to make money at this. So I
Yeah.
have, I have about 1,500 people who follow me pretty well. Like they respond
That's
and they
pretty good.
interact, and yeah, so
Yeah.
it's small compared to some people. It's huge compared to others. You can't really play the comparison game as an indie author,
Yeah.
because otherwise you just either be super proud all the time or super depressed all the time, depending on who you're looking at. So, but it has been, you know, it's just one follower at a time, one fan at a time, one person at a time that I reach, that I find, that finds my books, that really love my books, and to me that's worth more than 100,000 people I don't know who are. I mean, 100,000 people would be great if they
Mhm. Yeah.
if they were all really avid fans, but it's nice that it's been slow. It's kind of growing one fan at a time, and I kind of like
Nice.
it that way. So
Nice. Um, there was something else I was going to ask you, and I completely. Do you write full time? Like, do you have a day job?
define
Is
full
the
time.
yeah, just
I'm
do you
a
have a day job, or are you moonlighting
Yeah.
this, or how does it work for you?
So I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool my 4 kids.
Okay,
And so
so you
that's
have a full time
probably my
job.
number one full-time job. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So this is in the bits and pieces around that. Sitting in the
10
car
books
waiting for
later. Wow,
practice to be over.
that's impressive. That
Yeah.
that is very impressive.
Well, they're very supportive, which is wonderful. So,
Good.
yeah.
Good. I'm gonna briefly look over at my questions here because I know that some of them got covered, and now I'm drawing a blank on the rest of them. Um, what's your writing process like? It seemed from earlier, it sounds like you kind of follow the story as it goes, or do you map it out?
Yeah. So when I first started writing, it was very much just following the story where it went and no idea where I was going. But there's a lot of editing. We talk about all the work that we don't like to do as writers. We
Yep.
don't like writing query letters. We don't like editing. There's a lot of editing that happens after, when you just follow the story where it goes. And while I still prefer that, just kind of the discovery writing,
Yeah.
I have discovered that in the process of discovery writing, I have discovered that I don't like as how much editing I have to do at the end. So I do have more of an outline process now. It's not. I was actually just teaching my 13-year-old daughter how to outline a story today, and we were kind of going through like, okay, what if the character did this, and what if the character started here, and what if the character, because she was like, I don't want to do outlines. That's no fun, and but she was feeling. She just entered a story competition and she didn't win, so she was kind of down. And so we was like, well, have you ever thought about trying to outline, that sort of thing? And she's like, I don't want to do that. So it's like, well, what about this character? And so we kind of took her through this whole thing on how to write a short story. And it's like, and then at the end, and this, he goes from my future is over, and at the end, well, maybe my future is bright type of thing. And she goes, oh, that's cool. And I said, that's an outline. And she goes, yeah, that's an outline? That didn't feel like an outline. There was no point A, point B. I was like, yeah, it doesn't have to be a research paper outline, but just an idea of who this character is, how they grow, where they start, where they end. And having that helps a lot with the editing afterwards. So, yeah.
Do you have any habits that you do when you're writing, like a specific space or a specific drink or music or something? And also just kind of in that, because usually these are related, do you get a lot of writer's block, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. So usually I'm writing in my office, which is where I am here now. It's kind of a nice, quiet space under the stairs. So sometimes I pretend I'm Harry Potter. And but yeah, so I don't generally listen to music. Sometimes if I'm having writer's block, I will turn on music, usually something like Lindsey Sterling or the Piano Guys, or Christmas music is kind of my go-to instrumental. I think it's the familiarity allows me to tune it out, so then my brain can kind of focus on what I'm actually trying to accomplish. I don't really have a routine the way, like I might have water. But if I hit writer's block, I've found that the biggest thing is just mix it up. Like I'll go, if I'm sitting at the computer and I'm staring at the screen and nothing is happening, I'll grab a notebook and I'll go upstairs and I'll go outside, and write by hand for a while. And lately writing by hand has really been the thing saving my life, because I've been sitting at the screen a lot. Like, I don't know what to do. So, and then I'll grab my notebook and it just comes really fast. So
I've never heard that before. Honestly, writing by hand, like my hand cramps, it drives me crazy. And my handwriting's atrocious, so trying to read it later is just not worth it to me. Also, I love that cut and paste feature. It just really, nope, this shouldn't go here, But
yes.
No, I've never heard that, but that's really neat. And I'll have to try that sometime. Because just changing your environment and everything and what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. As far as music goes.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't have a window down here, so sometimes I just need fresh air.
Yeah. Nope, that'll do it.
Yeah.
No, as far as music goes, like I said, Christmas music, you said familiarity. I hear torture personally, but but
you don't like Christmas music?
Oh no, I do, but just not for writing. Like having it on loop or something. Mm-hmm. There is one band that, actually, there's a genre. When I was, I don't know, like a junior in college, my best friend left for college because he was a year behind me, and he came back and he had learned about this genre called post-rock, and it's basically all instrumental, and there's a lot of, some of it's just ambient, some of it's more uppity and like a classic rock type thing, and we ended up finding, it was funny, we were actually at a concert, and it was a post-rock concert, and we were very excited to see the band. I believe it was Russian Circles. And they were playing just other post-rock bands, and we were on this balcony right under the sound booth, and I'm talking to him and I'm like, what is this? Do you know this one? And he's like, no, because it was very just like, I don't know, intense and emotional. It was, and I literally like grabbed the railing and leaned down trying to read this guy's iPhone, like it looks like. And so anyway, I found this band. They're called Mono. They're a Japanese band, and they did an album called Hymn to the Immortal Wind. And every time I got writer's block, it was just like, put that on. And at this point, I've beaten it to death, but it's such a good album. So I highly recommend that at some point.
Cool.
It's a lot of ups and downs, but it's good.
Cool. I'll have to look that one up. I'm always looking for something instrumental because it does better without lyrics.
I knew somebody else that they liked to use movie soundtracks. That drives me crazy as well, because then I start thinking about the movie, not about what I'm supposed to be writing. So, yeah.
My problem with movie soundtracks is it's often there's like one track I'm really thinking of and like, okay, that would really get me in the mood for writing. And then I discover that there's all this other music in the movie that I don't remember at all. And it's all the wrong genre or feel for what I'm writing. So
I've definitely done that where I've gotten like just movie soundtrack CDs, and if you listen to them start to finish, there's always something in there that you're like, when was this playing?
Right. With my latest series, I have listened to a lot of like the Firefly and Serenity soundtracks. But that's it all fits, so that's good. So
you're a big Firefly fan?
Yeah, I am.
I'm a sinner. I caught the end of Serenity like when I was a kid, and I've heard nothing but good things about that entire series. And I just haven't gone back for it yet. But
yeah,
another thing to put to my to-do list.
Yeah, the movie's great. I love the show. It's not extremely family friendly, so I tend not to recommend it. But
okay,
yeah. Like I love it. I just don't recommend it without caveats.
Yeah, nope. I know that very well. When it hurts too, when you see something that's like great film and you're like, this was really great, like well written, well acted, Oscar winning, whatever. And I can never recommend this to anyone.
Yeah.
Thing without, like really specifying. So
yeah.
All right.
Can we pause for just a minute? Can you hear that in the background? Do you hear anything in the background?
The only thing is my computer fan is like very loud now. So
okay, fantastic. My children are upstairs vacuuming.
Oh, okay, yeah. No,
I'm just making sure that that's not coming through. I can go tell them to stop.
Totally fine.
Okay, cool. All right, we're back.
So how long does it? You're 10 books in. I guess there's two questions here. You're 10 books in. Some of it is a series, and then are the others standalone? Like, how much is it? And also, just how long does it generally take you to write a book?
Yeah. So I have two series right now. The first one is that one that starts with King's Warrior, which is epic swords and dragons and fantasy quests and very Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Prydain feel. And that one has 4 books. And then the series that I'm in the middle of writing right now is the Turrim Archive, which is airship pirates and robots and paratroopers. And that one will be 5 books. The 4th one is coming out in about a month. So
is that also when you're in the scripting process, like, a little bit of an outline? Are you thinking in terms of series, or is it just you hit a stopping point on a book and you go, okay, we're going to need another one? Like,
yeah, with Turrim Archive, I had the whole 5 books kind of figured out and outlined as more of an overarching story. Each book has a specific story that wraps up nicely, but then there are still things that you want to know, and so you have to read the next book to find out. With the Minstrel Song series, it was more, the first book was really great, and everybody wants to know the backstory of this character. So then I went and wrote a prequel, and then my fans were all like, oh, but what happens to the characters after King's Warrior? So then I was like, oh, okay, 3 years later. And then my dad was like, we need another one. We need to know more about Kieran and Kane. And so I was like, okay, last book, 5 years later. So those are very standalone, even though they are part of a series. So yeah. And then I have a middle grade fairy tale, kind of original fairy tale called An Echo of the Fae, which was supposed to be a standalone. And then my nieces demanded a sequel. So I'm writing a sequel. And then I have Steal Tomorrow, which was part of the Classic Retold series. So it's like a multi-author. So there were 9 of us all writing different takes on classics. And so each one of those books is a standalone, even though they're part of a series. And so I did a retelling of Oliver Twist, and it's set in the same world as the Turrim Archive, but 100 years before the first book.
Okay. So. And how long does it usually take you to write a book?
Yeah, that really depends on the book. So
I get that.
Like several of my books I've written in the summer. An Echo of the Fae, I wrote in 60 days. And then other books have taken years. So it just kind of depends on which book we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
Completely off topic and a little personal, but you've
Mhm.
mentioned him twice now, and he sounds like a very interesting man. Could you tell us a little bit about your dad?
Yeah, so my dad is my hero, and so he designed and built custom homes in Chicago, all through my growing up years, and so kind of a creative, a different kind of creativity,
Yeah.
because he actually like designed the houses and then built them.
Oh, wow.
And my mom homeschooled us, so I'm the oldest of four, and so she homeschooled us all the way through eighth grade. And Yeah, my dad was just always kind of all of our biggest fan, and my mom too. But yeah, he was always the one who was, follow your dreams, and it doesn't matter if it's crazy, it doesn't matter if it's way out there, it doesn't matter if the world says that you can't do it, like do hard things, do the thing that nobody else is doing. If it was hard, then everybody would do it, or if it was easy, then everybody
Yeah.
would be doing it, right? And so that was always kind of the mantra growing up, just the encouragement to be creative, the encouragement to follow the things that we really wanted to do, and he would always get behind everything we wanted to do, and do everything he could to help. And if he didn't know anything about it, then he would dive in and he would learn. So yeah, that's been
awesome.
a huge blessing in my life. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Thank you. Like, a lot of people, it's one of those, I try to keep it outside of personal life because, sometimes but no, that's a really great, really great piece of you to share.
yeah,
So thank you.
no problem.
What was your favorite book to write, or do you have a favorite?
Oh, it's always the one that I'm in the middle of usually. Although I hate the one I'm writing right now, but that's just because I'm annoyed with the fact that it's taking a long time. I really do. I think I'm going to like it when it's done.
Do you go back and read what you like your books once they're done?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm always strapped for time.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's always so many books I want to read, and so many books that I want to write. But what's been really fun is so I've gotten my books in audio. And so I've been working with a couple of narrators. And so what's fun about that is that it does make me go back and read, because I'll be listening to the audiobook while reading, so that I'm making sure that, everything's pronounced correctly and there aren't extra words or missing bits. And so that's been fun to kind of go back through all of my books and get to read them, or listen to them. Not so much for fun, but it's also like, oh, I wrote that. I like that. So that's cool.
That moment, I wrote that. I like that. Yeah. No, there's definitely some. So my first book I wrote about 7 years ago, and actually, just because you mentioned your dad like pushing you, my dad kind of threw a similar challenge where I had been writing towards the end of high school. I said, I think I want to write a book. And then through college, obviously, you waste a lot of time. And I got back from college, and then my relationship like shifted where I was single at the end of college, and then I was seriously dating someone about 6 months later. And we got engaged, and he said, life's not going to slow down for you. Like, are you going to do this or not? And I said, I can't do it this year, because for anybody who's engaged, it's awful. Like, it's one of the worst parts of marriage is being engaged and trying to plan a wedding. So I said, I'm way too busy right now. I said, but I'll make you a deal. Give me the first year of marriage, because I thought that I'd have more time. Give me the first year of marriage, and after that, like, if it's not done, I won't do it, type thing. And so during that first year, like working full time and stuff, and then finding that time to really pursue it and really do the writing, and I got it done. And then, so you fast forward like 7-8 years later, and every now and again I pick up that first book, and it's like, I don't remember writing this, like sections of it that, or, I forgot. And
Right.
I recently had the same experience where I said, I'd really like an audiobook just of this one. I have 3 total. But the first one, it was like, I'd really like an audiobook of this. And so I used Fiverr, and I found someone, and like you said, having to listen to it again and re-experience it, because I really don't reread my writing. But yeah, that was a very unique, and it was a very fun experience. And it definitely there were some things that it's like, oh, I forgot I put that in there, and it like sparked memories of the time that you were writing it, and or what was going on in your life, and that was pretty neat. So how did you end up with the audio stuff? Is that more friends, or did you end up on some like Fiverr site, or?
Yeah, so I think we just decided we wanted it in audio. I don't remember even what prompted that. It was a couple of years ago. But no, I just put the book on ACX. So we went through Audible.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yep. And so just threw it out there for auditions and thought, maybe nobody will audition. I ended up getting 3 auditions. And Benjamin Fife, who I ended up going with, he did the audition, and then he recorded like a personal note about how he'd found my books on Goodreads, or he'd seen the audition thing. And so then he went and looked on Goodreads and was looking up my books. And he was like, oh, these just really seem like Chronicles of Prydain, like Lloyd Alexander just really, would love to work on these. And I thought, his voice was great. He did great dragon voices. So needed that. But I just thought, wow, to work with somebody who really wants to work with me and really, gets the vision that these books were. So it was kind of a no-brainer at that point. So, and he went above, and he went above and beyond and was like, hey, this extra special note at the end that, just kind of, I think this guy would be fun to work with, and he's been fantastic. So
nice. No, that's pretty cool. Like you said about, and finding people who share that vision and everything. Yeah. And I totally just lost I'm getting old is terrible. They talk about, everybody joked about like mom brain and stuff. Oh, once she has a kid. Yeah. The dad brain too. Like just, everything leaves. And yeah, so I'll let that one go, but, we did those 2. What are the like biggest challenges that you've run into as an indie author?
Marketing probably would be the thing that is the biggest challenge. It's like, do I really have to? Do I have to do this part? So I don't know. You get to the point where it's like you've done everything you can, and then it's like, okay, so I have 12 people who really like this, and then it's always this challenge of how do I get this in front of new eyes? How do I get this in front of new audiences? And I'm sure the audience is out there. I know that there are other families who read out loud together, and that's always kind of been my audience, is that kind of YA. It really marketed towards YA, but also just families who want to read together. So if you have younger kids, but you want to read a story that's interesting to you, right, type of thing. And I know those families are out there. I know it's not just my family that did that, but finding them is tricky.
What have you tried? And has anything worked for you?
Facebook, Instagram. I have a Discord server. I got involved with Realm Makers, so that's kind of been a really neat experience and a way to network. I've done a couple of in-person events. The in-person events do well, but again,
that's the consistency with my second interview. She said the in-person events are probably her most successful as far as marketing. What was Realm Builder, did you say?
Oh, Realm Makers?
Yeah.
So Realm Makers has been around for 13, 15 years, something like that. They it's a writers conference and / community for Christian authors who write sci-fi and fantasy.
Oh, okay.
And they have a conference every year, and they have an awards every year. So there's like the Realm Awards in January. If you had a book published the previous year, you can submit your book to the awards, and they've got a whole bunch of different categories. So sci-fi, fantasy, middle grade, YA, I think supernatural, horror. And people are like, Christians, right? Supernatural horror. Yeah, sometimes.
Oh yeah. I've stumbled into that genre, and it's funny whenever you tell people about that, they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. So they've got, different, so each category will have a winner. So like the judging is going on right now, for this year's conference. And this year, and so then the conference has like speakers and classes and just all sorts of different things that you can get out of it. They have agents and editors that you can pitch to. They've got mentors that you can talk to if you're like, I'm not quite ready to pitch, but I'd like to talk about my story, or I'd like to talk about how to, what to do next once my story's written, type thing. So it's just a really fantastic weekend in July every year.
Nice.
And this year they're partnering with like a board gaming and I think video game convention. And so we're going to have like this big, huge expo in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So this should be fun.
Is it always in Michigan?
It travels around. The last couple of years it's been in St. Louis. This year they're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They've been in Atlantic City. And I think there was one year they were in like Phoenix or something down southwest.
No, that sounds really cool. And the video game crossover, that has a lot of potential because there's just a lot of similar themes there,
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I do remember finally what that question was, and it's, you keep referencing, you mentioned Lord of the Rings earlier, which I know what that is, obviously. Mm-hmm. What was the other thing? The Chronicles?
Oh, the Chronicles of Prydain.
Yes. What is
by
that?
Lloyd Alexander. So it's a book series. I think it was written in like the 70s, and I would describe it as Tolkien light. It follows a young man named Taran, and he's an assistant pig keeper, and then the pig runs away. And this is a very special pig because it's a pig that can prophesy. And so it's very important that they get it back. So that sort of sends him on this epic quest to go find this pig, and the people that have been raising him as these two old men who, like one of them is like the blacksmith of the village, and the other one is like the wise man of the village. And so they've kind of been sharing the responsibility of watching over this young orphan kid and making him the assistant pig keeper for the village. And so they just say, okay, you have to go find the pig. It's your responsibility. And that just thrusts him into this whole epic quest, and he meets the future king of Prydain and a very feisty princess who he of course falls in love with, and just kind of a lot of adventures and magic and just crazy things that happen. But it's a little bit more middle grade than Tolkien. But no,
I usually just whenever I hear Lord of the Rings and Chronicles, it's always of Narnia. So when you said Prydain, I was like, wait, whoa, hang on, what is that? I haven't heard of that one. So.
Oh, you if you like Lord of the Rings, you'd probably enjoy it.
I'm a terrible person. And
you don't like Lord of the Rings?
I like the movies, and the books are just painful. So a buddy of mine who went into a monastery, when he was going in, he had to give everything away, and he gave me his copy of his favorite book, which is the Silmarillion. So I said, all right, fine. So I read that, and then I read The Hobbit, I read The Fellowship, and I have The Two Towers downloaded on Audible, and I took a break like 3 years ago, and eventually I'll get there. But no, it's just not. I obviously I respect people who like it, and I respect his work, but it's just not my style. It's not my thing. There's something about it that just, I don't know.
He uses a much more archaic style of language. Chronicles of Prydain, like I said, is much more middle grade, is much more accessible, I think, for the average reader. Lord of the Rings, I think you have to have it read to you first. So audiobooks. I know Andy Serkis has.
Yes, those were actually.
Is that the one you have?
I listened to it for a few of them.
Cool.
I forget. I must have listened to Silmarillion. I didn't read it as much as I had that book. I think I started and it was like, couldn't.
I was gonna be really impressed.
So
I
have to say I did actually enjoy that one.
Okay, cool.
In a weird way, it kind of like reading the Bible, where you're like, I wouldn't say it's my favorite book, but it's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, for sure. So. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons I love the movies, is because I felt like the movies were so true to the books that even though there were some things that were different, and obviously, we can, complain about, their treatment of Faramir or whatever, but they were so well done that it made the story something that I could share with people who were never going to read the books.
Yeah.
And people even tried to read the books after watching the movies, and some of them loved it, right? So they found that story and were like, oh yeah, I love the books as much. And some people are like, yeah, I like the movies, and I can't get through the books, and that's fine too. So, but you know about the story, so it's good.
And now I know about the Chronicles of Prydain as well.
Yes. Don't watch that movie.
Oh,
Disney
okay.
did a horrible cartoon. Yeah, it's called The Black Cauldron back in the 90s.
Okay. You talked about the pig, and I'm like, why am I having deja vu here? Why am I having deja vu? That's why. Okay. Because, yes, The Black Cauldron, which I saw one time many years ago and have little to no recollection of. So clean slate, other than
Good.
Prophesying Pig.
Not a great movie. It's not their best work, but the books are worth it.
Well, to be fair, the Lord of the Rings cartoons weren't exactly stellar. They tried.
Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for those.
I was going to say, they can have a special place in your heart. I can see someone like loving that.
Yeah.
But
that's all we had growing up.
Exactly. Oh,
my kids are so spoiled.
So I saw that Lord of the Rings when I was a kid, and then like recently I was like, there was a cartoon. I should go back, and I bought a copy of it. And now, so my day job is like video editing, nothing fancy. I do corporate screenshot type stuff. But knowing about video editing and watching it and just seeing all the green screen that they tried to like live action animation mix, and as an adult, it was just like, oh my gosh,
right,
this is an experience. But no, if you grew up with it, I totally get that.
It was ahead of its time. I mean, that was made in the 70s. Like it's actually pretty impressive what they were able to do.
Sure.
Like today, it's like, wow, we could do this so much better, obviously. But back then, that was cutting edge,
The one that got me was my best friend. He comes up in it's like Black Cauldron. That was him. The thing I referenced earlier. He got into the like classic horror films with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then he twisted my arm into it because I was like, I'm good. And, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, that like held up. That was a really just well done. Like you said, you're talking about, oh, well, they could do it with CG now. And it's like, the way they did it, it was creepy. It was well done. It was impressive.
Cool.
So, yeah, no, older films, gotta love them.
Yeah.
What's one piece of, I'm going to cut marketing advice. What's one piece of advice that you wish you had known earlier about self-publishing? Or just writing?
It's a good question. And I was looking at that one and I was like, how would I answer that? I never came up with an answer. But I think it's good to know as an indie author, and as somebody who looks at writing and goes, that's what I want to do. I've talked to a lot of young authors, a lot of young aspiring authors, and I hate giving this advice because it feels like such a downer, but it's like you're probably not going to get rich doing this. It's not that you shouldn't do it, but that if you're just doing it because you think that's what you're going to make money at, maybe find something to supplement that a little bit. Because this has to be something you're doing because you love it. And whether or not you make any money at it or not, you do it anyway. I think a lot of people get very discouraged, especially early on. They're like, I wrote a book and I published this book and it's my baby and I'm holding it. It's so amazing. It's this great feeling. And then there's crickets, and then nobody, reads it, or their mom reads it, and that's it, and it's like there's a lot of work involved in getting it in front of people, and just because when you start realizing how many hours you spend writing this, and then you sell it and you make $1, and it's like, oh, I gotta sell a lot of these, and it's harder than I thought. So I think that just like not to be pessimistic at all, because I think it's worthwhile. I think it's, if you have a story and you sit down and you write it, like, that is a huge accomplishment, and it's worthwhile putting that time and that effort and that love onto the page, but also to not get discouraged if it takes a while to take off, and to kind of remember that a lot of authors had a lot of rejections. A lot of big name authors that had a lot of rejections before they hit it big, or before they got that like perfect deal, or before people knew that they existed. So
do you get a lot of reviews on your work, like on Amazon and stuff, and how do you deal with negative ones?
Yeah, I get a fair number. I have been very blessed not to have a whole lot of negative ones, and sometimes the negative ones are just kind of funny, because it's like, here's 2 stars and the person wrote eh.
Yeah.
You're like,
thank you for that constructive feedback.
What do I do with that?
Yeah.
So I haven't had any scathing reviews, which is nice yet. But even the ones where it's like they didn't like something, or they didn't appreciate it, or they just kind of went eh, I just tell myself that's not my audience, right? That's, okay, so somebody read it and it wasn't their cup of tea, and that's fine. Not everybody's gonna love what I write, and not everybody is. It's funny too, because I'll have a lot of like adults read my like my middle grade fiction, and they're like, well, if you were 13, this would be great.
You're like,
it's like,
great, because that's what I'm writing.
that was the point. Thank you for this review. It was lovely. It was very much helpful. So, or oh, these characters seemed younger than this age that they are, and it's like, well, I have a 12-year-old, and I modeled the 12-year-old character off of them, so I don't know what else to do, but yeah. So I think good reviews are great, and they can give you an ego boost, but at the same time, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into reviews. It's fun to read them. It's fun to see that you have a new one, but ultimately, those reviews are not for you as the author. Those reviews are for other readers to hopefully help other readers who will like your stories find them. And I always tell a story. I love this story. So one of my favorite books became one of my favorite books because of a negative review. So when I was in high school, we had to do a book report on a British author, a British novel. And one of the guys in my class, he didn't like to read. He was kind of the class clown, and the teacher offered him this book and said, you should read this one. I think you would enjoy it. And we had to do like a very dramatic book report. It wasn't just like stand up and read a book report. You had to, anyway, so he gets up and he just eviscerated this book for 8 minutes. Just everything about it was horrible. He hated it so much. It was stupid. It wasn't funny. It was just bad. And I sat there just fascinated, a sophomore in high school. It's like, I have to read this book. So I have to know if it's this bad. And so I went and I got it out of the library, and it was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I love it. It's so funny. And I was just like, the power of a negative review, that's now one of my favorites. So
that's really interesting. I've never heard that, but I like that you have to remember the review is for other potential readers to help get the right audience. It's not for you as the author.
Yeah,
I think,
because hopefully you got your editing advice from your editors. Like those are the people that you should take the critique from. If it's a review, it's not really for you.
Yeah. Oh. No, I like that. That's really neat. Do you read other indie work?
Almost exclusively, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not in the mainstream stuff. You dove in. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no. Just do you recommend any in particular? But we'll circle back to that.
For sure. So about 6 or 7 years ago, I joined an indie book club online. So it's on Facebook. It's the Fellowship of Fantasy Indie Book Club. So it's like, oh, they're going to read fantasy books, and it's all indie books, and the authors make their book free for either 5 days or the whole month, depending on what they're able to do with Amazon's rules. And so I joined that, and I bought a Kindle so that I could, because I was just buying the paperbacks, and then that started to get expensive, 12 books a year. So I was like, okay, take advantage of the free books. and just found a whole heap of new authors and new stories, and started realizing that the creativity is in the indie world. And if you want a story that's going to surprise you, if you want a story that's not going to just follow the same beats as every other story in the library, that the indie author world was full of creativity and full of just fantastic writing. And so I kind of gradually, went from just I was reading, getting stuff out of the library, and also reading the book club books, and then kind of finding all of these authors and realizing, oh, this is the first book in a series of 5 books, 6 books, 3 books, whatever. And then I didn't have time to read any of the books from the library, because these indie authors write and publish things really fast. So it's like, I've just got like all these books that I have to read, and you'd read the first book of a series and I'd be like, oh, I got to read the next book. And so then just kind of get sucked into all of these different series. So yeah, a lot of indie books.
So do you have any off the top of your head,
indie
books that people should look for, other than your own, obviously?
Yeah. I love everything DJ Edwardson writes. He's in the middle of writing a series right now that's called the Sword Speaker Saga. Love his books. He also has a completed sci-fi trilogy, which is he writes a little bit more like Tolkien, so a little bit more on that older language style, which is cool. I love E.J. Kitchens. She writes a lot of fairy tale type of retellings, but they're also like, she'll start with like a retelling, and then it kind of follows the characters through the series and becomes a totally original thing. So I've been reading her Of Magic Maid series lately. Love H.L. Burke, who writes a lot of fantasy, but lately has been, I think the last 5 years, she's been writing purely superhero fiction. And so those have been really fun. If you like, I think Marvel,
it was her follow loop that I found you.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
I was thumbing through Instagram and I'm like, how did we connect? And then it was like, oh, the follow groups. And then I saw that she was a mutual friend, and I'm like, it must have been her. So
yeah. So love her stuff. I've almost read everything that she's written. She's one who's, I think she's got like 50 books out now. So
wow,
kind of ridiculous. But I really like her writing style, and I've written in a couple of anthologies that she's run, and she's doing an anthology right now. 2 actually, where she allowed other authors to come in and write in her superhero universe. So I've got a short story publishing in that, and my daughter does too. So that's fun.
Nice.
So that's been fun. Trying to think who else is on my shelf. Lots of them.
This is a good segue. So superheroes. Who's your favorite?
My favorite superhero, like of all time?
Yeah,
Batman.
Good answer.
Yes.
Sorry, that's my all-time favorite.
Yeah, I love Batman.
Yeah, no, there's so many things that I shouldn't say right now, but yeah, this is a Batman shelf right here. And,
nice.
Yeah, I also picked up an autograph of Kevin Conroy's. So I never met him, but I did end up buying one after he died. So because that just, every time I read a comic book, it was like, that's who you hear,
Yeah, it's his voice. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
So I'm gonna start the transition out of just, is there anywhere that people should look for you? Anything? I know you mentioned a few new things coming out, so sorry, go ahead with that.
No, go ahead.
No, just if someone was only going to buy one book from you, just as the feeler, which would you recommend?
Probably An Echo of the Fae.
Okay.
Just because it is a standalone, and it's it won an award. So
oh, nice. Which award?
It won the Realm Award in 2021. So
nice.
For middle grade fiction. So yeah. So that one's very very much middle grade. So again, it would kind of depend on the reader. So if you are if you like middle grade and fantasy or like fairy tale fiction, then I would say An Echo of the Fae. If you're looking more for high flying adventure, I would start with the orb and the airship.
Okay. And yeah, so what social media, if people are trying to reach you or, you know, find more, what I mentioned your website earlier.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
So I have my website. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram pretty regularly. Usually just sharing random humorous stories. I don't post as much just me, but you know, I'll see like a funny meme and I'll share it. So it's not always on brand, but
that's something else actually I noticed when I was thumbing through your website is that you have a blog.
yes.
How is that? Does that help? Does it hurt? Is it something you keep up with? Because I read like every time I was looking for like best marketing practices for indie authors, blog always came up, and I have tried and I'm just terrible at it. So
I don't know. It's funny because I took a marketing class from Thomas Umstead Jr. and James L. Rubart and a couple years ago, and they were like, blogs do not sell books. Don't have a blog. And I was like, well, thank you. I've had a blog for like 15 years and you're telling me it was totally worthless. But it was fun. Like, you know, I think the best advice with marketing is do the things that are fun. And if it's fun, then your readers will notice. And I know that I've done most of my networking through my blog. Every September, DJ and I host the Silmaril Awards over on our blogs, and we get 10 other bloggers to join us, and we each take it's like a fantasy Oscars. It's like an Oscars for fantasy characters. So people nominate their favorite characters from books for things like best friend and best wisest counselor and most epic hero and that sort of thing, and most nefarious villain. And then we have a vote, and we hand out Silmarils to the winners.
That's pretty cool.
It's really fun. And it's funny because I think of it as this like tiny little thing. And then the other day, a blogger reached out to me and was asking some questions about it. And I was like, oh, you know, it's just kind of this little thing we do. And she was like, oh man, this is like it for bloggers. Like anybody in the blogging universe in the fantasy, like they want to be a part of this. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's cool to know. But anyway.
Nice. No, as I told the last person, I'm terrible at ending these. Someday I will get better. Someday I'll have a nicer camera too, and I won't just have like the closet door behind me. But anyway, no, I very much appreciate this, like I said, and I'm probably going to reach out to you and pester you a little bit about other indie authors that I could potentially talk to.
Oh, for sure. I got lots.
It seems like you're the woman with the connections. So. But no, thank you so much. I
have been called the fairy godmother of self-publishing.
You have been. Okay.
I have been.
Updating my contact now. Fairy godmother send. No, that's pretty funny. So no, thank you so much. I don't do these live very intentionally. So this will go up probably in the next week or so, and I'll shoot you the link and I'll be in touch.
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much for having me over. And if I can ever return the favor, my brother and I are doing a podcast of our own as well. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah, so.
I'm currently working on book 4, so maybe when that's done, and if it starts taking too long, I'll just reach out about some of the other ones. So
all right, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. Have a great day. Thank you again.